I want you to imagine that you're in a forest. Maybe you're in a city. Maybe you're in like a fantasy world, but it's kind of modernized. Well, I kind of made the soundtrack to that feeling. Very digital at times, but also very kind of classical and very obtuse, if you will. Maybe I need to show you what I mean. What's so great about this track already is I split the drums up into two with just the hi-hats. The hi-hats is kind of sampled and digitalized, but I try to make it as kind of unique as possible with the velocity, but also I made a kind of repeat or a roll, a hi-hat roll, where on kind of this bar here, it goes like it repeats 3 times. So it has like kind of that glitchy effect. Here as well, this is what the kick looks like, the snare, also the clap. I did want to try and add in a bit of bass, but it just kind of overlapped with the kind of the bass from the classic from the instruments, the bass that you heard in the beginning. Here is I made a lot of like impact and bassy sounds. So if we solo these two tracks here, loop them up. So it adds a bit of trailer epicness, but also a bit of what you hear in soundtracks. And that's what it sounds together. What I find crazy is when the cello, excuse me, when the cello comes in, this is what this sounds with. So it's just adding a bit of just a bit of epicness to the overall to the overall sound. We get into here, and this is what all of this sounds like. And then it goes into the cello part. What I like about this part is that I was inspired by the Black Panther soundtrack by Ludwig. And what I find fascinating about his score with the Black Panther is that you have kind of your traditional, kind of classical, kind of soundtrack, you know, with violins and with flutes and bass and you know, certain impacts. But what I also liked is the fact that he added a bit of drum machine. He had a bit of kind of 808s to it. And while this isn't specifically 808s, you can tell that in this section here where the yellow loop bar is, you can tell that it was inspired. You play a Black Panther soundtrack, and there's a lot of classical nuances. There's a lot of kind of, tones. But then at certain times, you hear drum machines, or you hear an 808 bass, or you hear some snares or hi hats, and it kind of brings it more towards traditional soundtracking, not old classical, but like soundtracks today. Heavy synths, heavy kind of percussion. Kind of like we broke down yesterday the Assassin's Creed Shadow soundtrack, how it had the Japanese nuances of the instruments, but then also it brought in some snares and 808s and kind of drums, and it was a bit digitalized. Let's get into my favorite part. This part here is the end, but I wanted to add in something new. And I've been wanting to play around with the flute, right? Flute is an interesting instrument. It's very high, it's very kind of worldy. To add in the kind of fantasy section, a flute is very good to achieve that. So you can hear the flute. My goal with the flute was dumb it down, pan it to the left, and kind of have it off in a distance to where if you're listening to it on headphones, you'll be able to tell, right? But it's there. It adds that bit of high frequency, bit of nuances, but it does kind of add that sparkling fantasy uh section then that a lot that would have in scores, if you will. Um, yeah. How I came up with this idea though is I was fiddling around composing, and I started with the violins. So as you can see here, hang on, maybe just bring it. There we go. As you can see here, I started to fiddle around with the midis, and on my MIDI keyboard, I started to compose, and I noticed that like this rhythm here, kind of this pattern, sounds cool, and it sounds fun, and yeah, overall it just reminds me of the fantasy vibe through this year. What I'm doing now is I am gonna solo it so you can listen to it. So like that's the kind of the pattern that I wanted to stay with. That's the pattern that I wanted to go with. So we play something quite interesting in at the start, and then we go on into that kind of higherness, and then really that's the pattern that I just carried forward for all of the instruments. There's that that's kind of the motif. Yeah, I thought I'd do a breakdown. I thought I'd change, the content up a little bit. Let me know if you want to see more of this, because I do compose outside of doing music reactions or music breakdowns. You know, I do my own conducting, then, if you will, my own scores. So, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that like button as well. Let me know in the comments down below what you want to see. If you want to see more of this, I will happily do more than this. If you would just want to see the music breakdowns, that's fine by me. But make sure you hit that subscribe button. Peace out.